Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Bulls maintain the winning streak on the Lal Street. Sensex gains nearly 1,000 points. The Nifty reclaims 24,000. Rupee regains some lost ground against the dollar. Adani stocks recover lost ground, but bonds slide to the lowest level in a year after bribery allegations surface. Adani's French partner Total Energies rules out any new investment until the consequences due to the US charges are clarified. GQG partner says it does not expect any material impact on Adani's businesses. A stormy start to the winter session of Parliament. The opposition seeks a discussion on the bribery allegations against Gautam Adani and others in the US. Both houses adjourned in an hour. S&P retains its 6.8% India growth outlook for FY25, even as it expects high interest rates and a low fiscal impulse temper urban demand. But it cuts the forecast for the upcoming 2 fiscal years by 20 basis points. Also points that the impending Trump administration will be challenging for China and the rest of Asia-Pacific. Crude oil prices waver near 2-week highs amidst tensions in Ukraine and West Asia. Hezbollah fires a barrage of rockets at Israel, even as some reports claim a ceasefire deal is very close. A sharp 85% spike in fraud cases related to the UPI in the last financial year, says the Finance Ministry to Parliament. FY24 saw more than 13 lakh fraud cases involving more than 1,000 crore rupees. UPI transactions also surged 57% last year. After a thumping victory in Maharashtra for the Mahayuti, debate continues on who will be the next chief minister. BJP legislators meet as Devendra Fadnavis emerges as the front-runner, even as Eknath Shinde's camp push for his return. After Mahanagar Gas, Indraprastha Gas hikes CNG prices by nearly 2 rupees across large parts of northern India, but no price hike in coal-bound Delhi, which accounts for 70% of IGL's business. It curtains on COP29. Developing nations promise to triple climate financing to $300 billion by 2035 after weeks of negotiations. This is short of the $1.3 trillion that developing nations were pushing for. African countries call it too little, too late. India says it's a paltry sum. India hammers Australia by 295 runs in the first test at Perth. This is India's third highest victory margin overseas in test history. Jasprit Bumrah named man of the match. Rishabh Pant, Shreyas Iyer and Venkatesh Iyer strike gold at the IPL Auctions. Pant becomes the most expensive player in IPL history after a 27 crore rupee winning bid from the Lucknow Super Giants. Well, let's start with the market action today. The Sensex gained nearly 1,000 points and the Nifty reclaimed the 24,000 marks. Mid-caps marginally outperformed the blue chips and even the bank stocks were up and about today. The Nifty Bank Index higher by about 2%, 1,000-point rally there. The Nifty mid-cap up by 883 points, 314 higher, 24,221. That's where the Nifty closed for the day, and the Sensex added almost 1,000 points, closing at 80,109. The rupee also recovered against the dollar in sync with the rise in Asian currencies today. The recovery can be attributed to the appointment of Scott Bessent as the Treasury Secretary from January 20th, when President Trump will be sworn in. Now known as a fiscal hawk, Bessent has vowed to bring America's deficit down to 3% by 2028. The global currency market is optimistic that he will inject more stability into the U.S. economy and financial markets. So Scott Bessent there now nominated by the Trump administration to be the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Shares of Adani Group companies continue to recover lost ground after a sharp sell-off last week. Adani Enterprises and Ports clocked gains after losing over 20% when the U.S. Justice Department indicted Gautam Adani and others on bribery allegations. Some group companies, including Adani Power and Adani Green, declined in trade. Adani's dollar bonds are at the lowest level in a year as investors weigh the allegations. Adani's French partner Total Energies has ruled out any further investment until the consequences due to the US charges are clarified. Total Energies owns nearly 20% stake in Adani Green and it owns more than 37% stake in the joint venture Adani Gas Total. In a statement, Total Energies said it will not make any new investments until the accusations against Adani and their consequences have been clarified. Total also said it was not made aware about the allegations and learnt about them through public announcements made by the U.S. Justice Department. GQG Partners, which invested billions of dollars into the Adani Group after the Hindenburg report, has played down the U.S. bribery allegations. In a note to its clients, GQG says the indictment is only related to one group company, which is Adani Green. GQG said many global executives have faced corruption charges in regulatory probes. These take years to resolve and could yield reduced penalties. GQG does not see any material impact on Adani's businesses. However, the bribery allegations have also cast a shadow on Adani's global deals. Kenya has already scrapped an airport project and a $700 million power transmission contract. Bangladesh has hired an external firm to review the power transmission deal with Adani signed by the previous Sheikh Hasina administration. Adani's port deal in Sri Lanka is also under a cloud. International Development Finance Corporation, the US agency, has pledged to finance the $553 million port terminal project in Colombo. But after the allegations, the US agency says it is assessing the ramifications of the charges. The DFC also said no funds have been disbursed under the loan commitment as things currently stand. Sri Lanka's cabinet is also likely to take a decision on the Adani project. Now, the controversy surrounding Adani rocked Parliament as the first day of winter session got off to a stormy start. The Lok Sabha was adjourned within a few minutes after opposition members demanded a discussion on the bribery allegations against Adani and others. Congress MPs wanted opposition leader Rahul Gandhi to be allowed to speak on the issue. The speaker denied permission. We saw similar scenes in the Rajya Sabha, and the upper house was adjourned within an hour. All members of Parliament have been invited to attend the Constitution Day celebrations in the Central Hall tomorrow at 11 a.m.
हर पीढ़ी का काम है आने वाली पीढ़ियों को तैयार करे, लेकिन 80-80, 90-90 बार जनता ने जिनको लगातार नकार दिया है, वे न संसद में चर्चा होने देते हैं, न लोकतंत्र की भावना का सम्मान करते हैं।
18वीं लोकसभा के 12 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
मोदी जी सपोर्टिंग हिम। मैं
एक सेकंड नहीं, आर यू ऑन योर सीट? शुड नॉट शाउट, अवेल द अपॉर्चुनिटी।
सर मुझे कोई सिखाने की
लीडर ऑफ ऑपोजिशन आल्सो टू बी इनवाइटेड फॉर स्पीक. Now you are now tomorrow celebrating the Constitution Day. That Constitution Day, you are demolishing the spirit of the Constitution. You are making it as a one-sided show, as a Sarkar program. Then what is the role of the Parliament here?
Well, Parliament session kicks off today. That is the winter session. Now, staying with the winter session of Parliament, the Finance Minister will move the Banking Laws Amendment Bill for passage. The government aims to pass the bill in the Lok Sabha in today's session. Of course, both houses have been adjourned. The bill seeks to enhance services for depositors and provide investors access to unclaimed funds. Procedural changes in statutory report submissions to the RBI are also likely. Now, fraud cases related to the UPI have risen 85% in the last financial year, as per the Finance Ministry. The ministry told Parliament that FY24 has seen more than 13 lakh fraud cases involving more than 1,000 crore rupees. UPI transactions also surged 57% last year. Shivani standing by with more. Shivani.
UPI frauds are rising at an alarming pace, with cases surging 85% in FY23. The Ministry of Finance has revealed in the Parliament that fraud incidents jumped from 7.25 lakh cases in FY23 to 13.42 lakh cases last year, with the value involved nearly doubling from 573 crore rupees to 1,087 crore rupees. This trend continues into FY24-25, which has already seen 6.32 lakh fraud incidents worth 485 crore rupees in just a few months, nearly 50% of the last year's total. On the flip side, UPI usage is soaring. Transactions grew by 57% year-on-year from 8,371 crore in FY23 to 13,113 crore in FY24 and have already crossed 8,566 crore in the current fiscal year. The Finance Ministry says that it's tackling fraud through multiple measures. The RBI is using a central payment fraud information registry powered by AI and machine learning to track and prevent frauds. Security measures such as device binding, two-factor authentication and daily transaction limits are also in place. For citizens, the ministry has introduced reporting tools like the National Cybercrime Portal and the Helpline 1930, along with public awareness campaigns on preventing cybercrime. Additionally, the ministry said that the Sanchar Sathi portal now has a feature called Chakshu to report fraudulent calls and messages. The government insists these steps are critical to securing India's rapidly rapidly growing digital payment ecosystem. But with fraud numbers soaring alongside transaction volumes, the challenge of balancing security and accessibility remains significant. Back to you.
Shivani, many thanks for joining us. Now, heavy fighting between Israel and Hezbollah continues. Israeli airstrikes over Beirut continued over the weekend, causing massive destruction across the city. Hezbollah retaliated, fired around 300 missiles and drones at Israel's capital, wounding 11 people and causing severe damage across Tel Aviv. Reports suggest that both Israel and Hezbollah are on the cusp of a ceasefire deal. However, there is no official confirmation yet. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has also carried out fresh strikes on a hospital in northern Gaza, killing at least 2 people and injuring dozens. More than 44,000 people have been killed in Gaza and over 3,700 have been killed in Lebanon since the war began last year. Oil prices fell after gaining 6% last week but remained near 2-week highs. This as geopolitical tensions between Western powers and oil producers Russia and Iran continue. Now, this has raised concerns over potential supply disruptions, and that continues to weigh on sentiment. Shares of Indraprastha Gas soared in early trade after the company hiked CNG prices. The city gas distributor increased prices in the range of nearly 2 to 4 rupees per kg in cities including Noida, Ghaziabad and Gurugram. However, the price remains unchanged at 75 rupees per kg in Delhi, where polls are scheduled in the next few months. Now, this price hike comes days after Mahanagar Gas hiked prices in Mumbai by 2 rupees a kg. These prices were triggered after government slashed the administrative gas allocation to city gas distributors by over 40% in the last 2 months. Ratings agency S&P has retained its 6.8% India growth outlook for the current fiscal, but it's cut the forecast for the next 2 fiscal years by 20 basis points. In its report, S&P cited high interest rates and lower fiscal impulse tempering urban demand as reasons for the downgrade. That's not all. S&P also highlighted that the impending Trump administration will be challenging for China and the rest of Asia Pacific. Saudi Arabia has sought a bilateral investment treaty with India before processing with a free trade agreement. Sources tell us that India is not keen on linking the FTA with an investment treaty, which it is negotiating separately with Saudi Arabia. Abhimanyu standing by with more. Abhimanyu, what are your sources telling you?
Government sources have indicated that Saudi Arabia wants to sign a bilateral investment treaty with India before proceeding with a free trade agreement. However, India isn't too keen to link an FTA with a BIT, which is separately being negotiated with Saudi Arabia. Due to this difference in stand between both the countries, the Indian government believes that signing of an FTA with the Gulf Cooperation Council is unlikely anytime soon. Saudi Arabia is the largest GCC member in terms of economy, population and land area. The 6-member economic bloc comprises of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Oman and Bahrain, of which India already has an FTA with the UAE. Last year, India had given an option to GCC member countries to sign individual FTAs instead of a collective FTA.
Well, that's the latest there on a possible investment treaty with Saudi Arabia. On to CNBC TV 18 exclusive. The government is considering the introduction of an arbitration mechanism to reduce the litigation burden on taxpayers and government officials. Sources tell us that the upcoming budget could include a framework to make arbitration the preferred method to resolve tax disputes. Timsy is here with more. Timsy.
Well, that's right. Sources are indicating to us that the government is currently considering mechanisms, including arbitration, to deal effectively with tax litigation. What we are given to understand from sources that the government may introduce an arbitration mechanism as an alternative to tax disputes in the upcoming budget for 2025. Currently, this proposal is under active discussions at various corridors of the government. Especially, the talks are on to create a special team dedicated to arbitration of tax disputes. Government is eyeing that the tax arbitration as a measure to improve ease of doing business in the country, and also once this arbitration mechanism is adopted, this measure will significantly reduce the burden of tax litigation backlog that is currently being faced by the Income Tax Department, to be precise. Apart from that, offering tax arbitration mechanism as an alternative will also help India match with the global best practices that its peers currently follow. Currently, countries like Canada, Australia already have tax arbitration mechanisms in place, and OECD is also advocating for arbitration as the preferred method for resolving tax disputes. So let's see whether Budget 2025 actually unveils an arbitration mechanism and a dedicated team so that these legacy and backlog tax disputes can be settled in a best way forward, something that we'll have to wait and watch for.
All right, Timsy, many thanks for joining us. Up next, Rishabh Pant, Shreyas Iyer and Venkatesh Iyer strike gold at the IPL auctions. That and more when we return. Well, the big national story, top leaders of the Mahayuti in close huddle as there is still no clear picture on who the next Chief Minister of Maharashtra will be. The BJP, as per reports, wants Devendra Fadnavis to get the state's top job. The BJP, with 132 seats registered, their best ever performance in the state. Eknath Shinde's Shiv Sena won 57, Ajit Pawar's NCP won 41. Sources tell Network 18 that the NCP backed Fadnavis as Maharashtra's Chief Minister. Ajit Pawar dismissed talks of any formula for the CM post and said that the alliance would decide on the CM together. The Shiv Sena unanimously elected Eknath Shinde as the legislative party leader. Sources tell Network 18 that the Shiv Sena is pitching for Shinde to retain the CM post. The party says that poll trends were in favour of the Mahayuti because of the Ladki Behan Yojana, Shinde's flagship initiative for women. The Jharkhand Mukti Morcha leader Hemant Soren is all set to take oath as the state's chief minister on the 28th of November. Soren met Jharkhand Governor Santosh Gangwar and staked claim to form the government. The India bloc secured a decisive victory in the assembly elections to retain power for the second consecutive term. Let's also get you a wrap of some of the assembly by-polls, the results of which were announced on Saturday. First to UP, where by-polls were held for 9 assembly seats. The BJP won 6, including 2 that it wrested from the Samajwadi Party. Ally Rashtra Lokdal won 1 seat. Samajwadi Party won the remaining 2. The BJP won 5 of the 7 by-election seats in Rajasthan. 4 of these were won by the Congress in the 2023 elections. The Grand Old Party held on to its Dausa seat by a slender margin. It was a clean sweep for the Trinamool Congress in West Bengal as the party retained its 5 seats and clinched 1 from the BJP. The win comes as a fillip for Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, who's come under heavy criticism for the way her government handled the RJ Kar rape and murder case. There was some solace for the Congress party in Karnataka as it won all 3 seats. 2 of the seats were held by the BJP and the Janata Dal Secular, respectively. The COP29 climate summit is concluded in Baku. After much deliberation, developed nations have agreed to provide $300 billion a year to poorer nations by 2035 to battle climate change. However, India has expressed its disappointment with the proposed amount, calling it abysmally poor. The UN delegation said that the developed nations' proposal was too little and too distant. Take a look.
We are extremely, extremely disappointed. I regret to say that this document is nothing more than an optical illusion. This, in our opinion, will not address the enormity of the challenge we all face.
Well, yes, finally COP29 has ended. The COP was called as the Climate COP, so the final decision has been on climate finance. It has been decided to triple that amount of $300 billion versus the previous amount that they had spoken about, that was $100 billion, that is yearly by 2035. Now, developing nations, remember, had asked for at least $1 trillion of funding to fight the issue of climate change and the increased climate events that we have been witnessing. So the overall idea is that developing nations or the smaller nations, they are not happy with the final finance amount that has been finalized at COP29. Now, climate finance will be raised through a variety of instruments. There will be sources, public or private, maybe bilateral or multilateral, including alternate sources as well. $300 billion, an amount which is not liked by developing nations, including India, where India's stance is that this particular goal is too little and too distant from the reality. They have called this amount abysmally poor and paltry as well. In fact, at the time of negotiations, a lot of these delegations from small island states and poorer nations, they walked out of negotiations. They called their climate finance interests being ignored by the developed nations as well. And that's right, because climate finance has been the big focus of COP. It was expected that there'll be bigger amounts, bigger negotiations, and something fruitful that would come out of this COP, which has otherwise been a non-event as well. If we talk about the climate finance number, as per IRENA, it is estimated that $5 trillion would be needed by 2030 by the entire world to fight the issue of climate change, and developing countries would need around $1 trillion by the same amount. This is an IEA estimate, so it has fallen sharply short of that particular number, and that's why COP has ended with some sort of disagreement, or I would say most of the nations are not happy with this amount.
Sonal, many thanks. And plenty of action in sports. India hammered Australia by 295 runs in the first test at Perth. This is India's third highest victory margin overseas in test history. Jasprit Bumrah was the stand-in captain. This test match was named man of the match. The next test match will begin in Adelaide on the 6th of November. And staying with cricket, Rishabh Pant, Shreyas Iyer and Venkatesh Iyer strike gold at the IPL auctions. Pant became the most expensive player in IPL history after a 27 crore rupee winning bid from the Lucknow Super Giants. And Hormuz is here to wrap up all the IPL action. Hormuz.
You know, death, taxes and change are the only constants in life, but the other big constant in life is the IPL. And this time around is no different. While 4,000 miles away, it was raining runs and wickets in Perth. It was raining crores in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, where the IPL auction is currently underway. And the other constant about the IPL is that every season you would see the most expensive player tag being surpassed than the previous season. This time around, it went to Rishabh Pant for the Lucknow Super Giants for a whopping 27 crore. Shreyas Iyer came a close second with 26.75 sold to the Punjab Kings, and Punjab Kings also splurged 18 crores for Indian leg spinner Yuzvendra Chahal. The foreign players, there's been a lot of talk about their availability for the entire season and the big moolah being dished out to them. This time was no different. Josh Butler going to the Gujarat Titans for almost 16 crores. Trent Bolt and Jofra Archer going for 12.5 crore each to the Mumbai Indians and the Rajasthan Royals respectively. Well, the other Iyer that I wanted to talk about though was Venkatesh Iyer, who was the third most expensive player this time around, retained by the Kolkata Knight Riders for 23.75 crore. Virat Kohli, of course, for 21, and Arshdeep Singh, the fast bowler, retained by the Punjab Kings for 18 crore rupees. Uncapped players have drawn a lot of attention this time around, courtesy a certain Mahendra Singh Dhoni, but the actual non-capped players for India too received a fair bit, with Rasik Dar Salam, the fast bowler from J&K, being brought for 6 crores by the Royal Challengers of Bengaluru, Shashank Singh for 5.5 and Naman Dheer by the Mumbai Indians for 5.25 crore. Well, it's raining money, of course, in Saudi Arabia right now. While the Border Gavaskar Trophy is underway, the focus too is on the IPL as well.
All right. Thanks very much, Hormuz, for filling us in with all the IPL action from the IPL auction. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. The news will continue right here on CNBC TV 18. Stay tuned. We're back in a moment with more.